This offseason is a pivotal one for Miami's future, so we'll be running the first of several mock offseasons. Who do they draft? What do they do in free agency? And how do they handle Jimmy Butler's contract? We'll take on each phase of the Heat roster and how it could play out on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, you are Locked On Heat, your everyday podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day, Monday to Friday. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil, both of us credentialed Heat media members, and really pumped up about today's show. We've got a mock Miami Heat offseason or an offseason simulation of sorts. We're going to run through the entire offseason, going through the key dates, the big decisions, including the draft, Jimmy Butler's extension negotiations, free agency, whale hunting. We're going to do all of it, and by the end, we'll have the Heat's roster for next season. This is our first time doing this, but David, I think if the listeners like it, we could do a few more of these this offseason. I'm really excited for this. This is right up my alley here. So, David, you're going to be, and maybe we'll switch this off every time we do this, but right now you're going to be the Heat's front office. So you're going to be operating as Pat Riley, Andy Ellisberg, Adam Simon, Eric Spoelstra, Nick Arison, the whole group. That's you. And then I'll basically be everybody else. So when you're negotiating with Jimmy Butler, I'll be Jimmy Butler and Bernie Lee. If you're negotiating with another team for a trade, I'll represent the other team's front office. And if you're negotiating maybe with a potential free agent, I'll be the free agent and his representation. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. But we'll figure it out. We'll work out the bugs as we go. But let's just jump right in. We're going to do the draft, which is June 26th and June 27th. They are splitting up the first and second round for the first time this year. And Fanspo has this really cool mock draft simulator, so people are not going to be able to see it on their screen, but I could see it on my screen, and that's the most important thing here. So I'm gonna just do the simulation, the Heat pick at 15, and we'll see who's left on the board when it gets. Okay, so just simulated the mock draft on the Fanspo model. The Heat are up with the number 15th pick. Right before us went Isaiah Collier and Zach Edey. So those guys are not on the board right now while Miami is picking number 15. Who is on the board? We've got Baylor's guard Jacoby Walter, Duke big man Kyle Filipowski. We've got Devin Carter out of Providence, Tristan Da Silva, the wing out of Colorado, Jared McCain, who I think Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer had mocked to the Heat, yes. Shooting guard out of Duke, Yves Missy, the center out of Baylor, and then a couple more guys on the board, including Khalil Ware out of Indiana, and a few other guys there. So who do you like? This is our war room, so right now you and I are both sort of operating as the Heat's front office because there's nothing for me to do here as somebody that's not the Heat. So we can kind of debate this, but of this group, I still think that there's some pretty good options here at number 15.
I agree. I think we're looking at probably somebody that can both stretch the floor and provide some much-needed size for Miami's front court, particularly considering what happens in free agency and a couple of big names that are going to be available and that might, even within Miami's roster, might choose to leave the team. And so I'm looking at a player in particular that I think can add things. As much as I like Devin Carter, and I'd love to keep it within the family, obviously AC, a big part of Miami's past, and I'd love to be able to do that for him. My pick, if I'm moving forward, and you can debate this if you want, is Khalil Ware out of Indiana. I like his stretching ability as far as he could shoot. He didn't get that many opportunities while Indiana, but I think it's a long-range skill that he has that he could add to the table. I think he's a developmental project, but at the same time, he brings the length, the size, the athleticism, and all the tools that you're looking for in a current center. He reminds me a little bit of Derek Lively, who was available around this pick, too, for the Dallas Mavericks last year. I think he's that type of guy who could be a rim-rolling threat. He can create his own offense. Like I said, he can shoot. He can stretch the floor. His low-post game needs a little bit of work, but in the NBA today, that's really not much of a factor. But given all that his youth, his talent, his size, and everything else that he does have, I think he's a smart pick at 15.
I don't mind the pick. He's on my board. I'm curious. I think Yves Missy is a little bit more polished and a little bit more ready to go than
Yes.
Khalil Ware. Similar in size. Khalil Ware 7'1", 230 pounds. Missy 7 foot, 230 pounds. Missy a little bit more productive in terms of blocks and things like that. But Khalil Ware a very good shot blocker in his own right. I think both of them have some floor stretching potential. Khalil Ware, that's more of his. You see him get compared to a Miles Turner or a Brook Lopez quite a bit.
Yes.
I think I hesitate to draft guys who are compared to Brook Lopez and Miles Turner because it feels like a lot of guys get compared to those guys and then never become those guys. It feels
Sure.
like the floor and the ceiling for guys in that sort of category, that archetype, is very wide, and it scares me off a little bit. And most mock drafts actually have Khalil Ware being taken in like the low 20s as opposed to the middle of the first round here. So I
Yes.
wonder if that's our target because there's still better center, quote unquote, better, higher rated centers on the board. Kyle Filipowski out of Duke, Missy, who we were just talking about. Like these guys are higher
Look,
on most
Wes,
people's boards.
I don't have to remind you as a member of our warm room, when everybody else zigs, the Miami Heat always zag. We have our
But
own
I do
scouting
wonder if we
department.
could trade back.
That's a possibility. I don't know. Miami has rarely done that in the
They don't move up
franchise's
or
history.
down. Yeah,
Right.
they either
So
stay or move out completely.
we found our guy. He checks off all the boxes. He's got the intangibles. He comes from a good program. He's heady. He's smart enough. He can fit that role for us. I don't mind taking a risk on a developmental project that a lot of people don't have slated for 15. Hell, the last time we did it a few years ago, we wound up taking an all NBA center in Bam Adebayo. So I feel comfortable
I'm
taking that selection at 15.
he was coached by Mike Woodson, who obviously has some NBA, quite a bit of NBA experience as a coach. So I do hear you on that. I do like the pedigree there. I'm not ready to move off of Devin Carter completely. I felt like you just sort of glossed over it.
Yes.
That fits a need for the Heat. He's 6'3", 6'4"-ish, long wingspan, very productive at Providence, but he projects right away as a guy who can be an on-ball defender. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is almost a better prospect than Davion Mitchell was a few
Mm-hmm.
years ago, but I think his stock has dropped because Davion Mitchell has sort of, it's been a slow start to his career, but the difference between Carter and Mitchell is that Mitchell has an average wingspan, right? He's like 6'4" with a 6'5" wingspan. Carter's wingspan is long. Like this guy could, to me, could be maybe the next guy in like the Lou Dort, Marcus Smart kind of
Yes.
Jalen Suggs family there. And those players are really hard to come by, maybe even
Yes.
more hard to come by than some of these centers that we're talking about. And the
Maybe so.
family connection is real.
Yes.
I'm not ready to move off of drafting him.
I'll tell you
yet.
what, Wes. You're familiar with this. We brought him in for a workout. Comfortable here, obviously, in terms of you know the familiarity with the franchise and the surroundings and everything else like that. We've watched him for years shooting on this practice floor. I was sitting next to Mickey. We were making these decisions together. He did not look completely comfortable in his shooting drills. He certainly did not put up the kind of numbers that we expect at this pick. And I think we'd like to revisit this. He's always going to be welcome family. His family here with his Heat front office. And so he's going to be available to us at some point later on in his NBA career. But as far as a draft, I don't think he's the position of need that we're looking for. So as much as I want to do AC the favor, I think we still have to go. Devin Carter's future, he's going to be selected in the first round no matter what, and I'm sure he's going to be happy with it. But he needs to carve out his own career, his own future in terms of the NBA, and kind of step out of his dad's shadow a bit.
Okay, yeah, doing him a solid by not drafting him. Way to spin that. It's all right. Look, I think the other part of this too is who has more trade value. I think if we're being honest as a front office, we do have to consider that, considering some of the things that we want to try to accomplish this offseason. And I do think somebody like Missy or Khalil Ware has more draft value than perhaps Devin Carter at this juncture, considering that Devin Carter is a junior, Missy's a freshman, Khalil Ware is a sophomore. You feel strongly about Khalil Ware. You're the scout pounding the table. We got to draft this guy.
Hammer, right?
I like what you're talking about in terms of we've got our own big board. We don't care about your Filipowskis. We've got our Khalil Ware at the top of ours. We did it with Bam. I like it. I love the size at 7'1", 230, with a good frame that he feels like he's going to add to. You're right. The pedigree's good. The coaching, he's been coached up for a year. I kind of like that he's a sophomore over a freshman in Missy.
Yes.
maybe a little bit more polished, although still raw, but
Yes.
has been coached up. All right, the Miami Heat select Khalil Ware with the 15th pick. We're going to move on now. Filipowski went to the very next pick, by the way, and then Jacoby Walter, then Devin Carter to the Orlando Magic. They don't need him. They got Jalen Suggs. All right, and the Miami Heat are back on the board with the 43rd pick in the second round. The first time that we've been selecting in the second round in quite a while, right? Since the first time I think we're going to keep our pick maybe, or potentially the first time we have a chance to keep our pick since like what? Do I have this right? Josh
KZ
Richardson?
KZ
KZ
Okpala, I
They
think.
traded into the KZ Okpala pick. Yeah, so
That's right.
all right, who are we taking here? Number 2, lead scout David Ramil.
Well, you know what? The reason why we didn't take Devin Carter was because I like this point guard out of Spain, Juan Nunez. I think he's a flashy passer. I think he projects as a good scorer at the NBA level. We had success with Nico as far as an international prospect, and I think he's got the maturity, the talent, the flash. He's already played professionally, even at a young age. He's ready to play in our system. And while our guard situation is a little bit more stable, I think, than our front court, at the same time, I think he projects as a long-term prospect, a guy who can have a multi-year solid career, and he's got some really nice potential. We're taking Juan Nunez out of Spain.
20 years old, like you mentioned, out of Spain, 6'4". What I like about him, he's an assist guy, he's a steal guy, and those things I think could be very valuable in our offense. My concern is the three-point shooting and the free throw shooting is not good. And so there's not a lot of indicators that this guy's going to be able to turn into an above average to good three-point shooter, which we kind of need the way that our roster is built. That said, we have turned non-shooters into shooters before. We're going to trust our developmental system. Juan Nunez is the pick for number 43 for the Miami Heat. All right, so that's the draft. We got Khalil Ware with the number 1 pick, Juan Nunez with our second-round pick. I like the haul overall. That looks good to me. So we've got 2 new players. We're going to be moving on next to our own free agents, Caleb Martin, Kevin Love, Thomas Bryant, Josh Richardson. They have player options that they have to consider. Plus, we have big negotiations coming up with Jimmy Butler. All that coming up on our mock Miami Heat offseason here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Go Cats. You know what? Panthers are going to take this series. I think they're going to win it at 6. I think that's a nice prop bet right there. Visit FanDuel.com.
Rangers have the worst odds to win the Stanley Cup, which bodes well for the Panthers being the favorites. But you never know in the NHL playoffs. You got to support those Panthers when they're home.
Absolutely. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. If you're enjoying the mock Miami Heat offseason, please let us know in the comments on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star rating review on your podcast app if you guys like this. We're going to do them some more because we can keep changing with new information and just random things that happen. There's a lot of ways that this offseason can play out, and we're going to try to enter the metaverse and figure out all of them, essentially. The metaverse, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
So let's start with Miami's own free agents. It's June 29th, a couple of days after the draft. It's the last day for team or player options to be exercised. So even this happens even before on the NBA calendar, before the start of free agency, before even technically you're allowed to start negotiating with Jimmy Butler for an extension. So we're going to do this right now. It's June 29th on the calendar. Caleb Martin has a player option. Thomas Bryant has a player option. Kevin Love, Josh Richardson, they both have player options. So 4 players. We'll start with Caleb at the top. His player option for next year worth $7.1 million. A little bit of a kind of a stagnant season for him in terms of development. He did score 10 points per game off the bench. He was still a useful player for Miami, dealing with some injuries as the season went on. I do still think that the expectation is that he's going to opt out and at least try to get a longer-term deal worth a little bit more money. I think most people project him being able to probably get to that $10 million figure over 3-ish years. And if that's the case, then you have to opt out if you're Caleb Martin.
I'm Caleb in this situation, and I considered the possibility of not opting out. You know, part of the way I'm wired, the appreciation for the opportunity Miami gave me, the camaraderie I've built over the last few years, everything that I've been able to experience as a member of the Heat organization. And I considered, just betting on myself. We hear that phrase a lot from not Heat players, from NBA players. They want to bet on themselves. They take a chance. You know what? You don't collect the money right away. There's unfinished business. I still want to bring a title to Miami, but you know what? I can't give up that opportunity. I know there's going to be
He already
money
bet on
available
himself
out
once.
there.
You don't want to play roulette too many times.
That's right. That's right. And I looked at next year's free agency class. There's an opportunity for me to make more money next year. But you know what? If I can collect a bigger payday now and get a longer term deal, a secure deal that provides that money up front, and I know that Miami can't match that ability, I'm taking it. And so I step into Pat Riley's office. I thank him for the opportunity and everything that we were able to accomplish over the last few years. But I have to opt out and seek better opportunities elsewhere.
So he's going to opt out. He's going to enter free agency. I do think if we're the Heat's front office operating here, that we want to keep that door open. There's a lot that can happen. If he opts out, we sign the 15th pick, which we're going to, and we sign our second round pick, which we plan on doing, then we are still $7.7 million below the second tax apron. Now, that's not going to be enough to bring Caleb back. But if we're able to shed salary in a different way, we would be very open to maybe revisiting Caleb Martin's contract as a free agent this summer, and perhaps even bringing him back on something that makes a little bit more sense.
I've never been a coveted free agent before, and so part of the thrill is that I'm going to have teams woo me in a way that I haven't had throughout my NBA career. I picked Miami when I was waived by the Charlotte Hornets. Now I have a chance to really carve out the beginnings of my generational wealth, and that opportunity to meet with other teams and have them pitch me is something I can't pass up. So yes, absolutely. Miami still has an opportunity to re-sign me, but the reality is I'm looking elsewhere for the more lucrative.
So did we do a role swap here now where you're the players and I'm the front office? Can we go back to what we're playing?
Either way.
Thomas Bryant has the player option for $2.8 million. We'll go with him next. I think you and I expect he'll probably opt in, although if I'm Thomas Bryant and my agent, I do. You think he opts out?
I do.
This is new for you. You gave this some more thought?
Yes, I did. I think, look, we're seeing the need for the big man across the league, right? We just talked about it in yesterday's episode. I think I didn't get a good opportunity in Miami. I'm stuck behind Kevin Love's old ass. I can't get any playing time over Orlando goddamn Robinson. And I think Eric Spoelstra, as much as he's respected around the league, just hasn't utilized me as fully. And I appreciate the opportunity they gave me. I've got my ring already. I want minutes. I want playing time. I'm not going to get that in Miami. So
I've said in previous episodes that I wouldn't be surprised if he opted out. $2.8 million is not a lot of money to leave on the table. It's essentially the veteran minimum. And I think he's going to get that somewhere. There's too much potential. He's 26 years old, 7 feet tall, a good rebounder, 3-point shooting potential. Those guys get chances in the league. And he's not leaving a lot of money on the table. So Thomas Bryant opts out. Boom. Kevin Love, player option, $4 million. Kevin Love opts in. Josh Richardson, player option, $3 million. Josh Richardson opts in. Good to go?
I agree. I agree on both counts.
July 1st is the start of free agency. The new league year begins on July 1st. So does the free agency moratorium. So we've got a week now where you can't sign free agents, but you can negotiate with free agents, and you can negotiate with your own free agents. So we already let Caleb Martin know, hey, don't close the door on us if we call for a meeting. Keep those phone lines open, although no promises. And we also have Jimmy Butler's extension to discuss. Now, he becomes extension eligible in a few days, but we're allowed to start talking with him right now about that extension. Here's the tough part. So you're the Heat front office, David. I'm Jimmy Butler and Bernie Lee in this situation. Sometime at the beginning of July, I come back from Barcelona or wherever I was, and I show up with the Heat in the Heat's front office with beads in my hair saying, hey, are we ready to talk about this extension? I know you gave that end of season press conference. I know you've got to, maybe this is Bernie Lee talking now. I know you got to, put your foot down and try to create some leverage. Look, we all want to get on the same page here. You want Jimmy Butler to retire as a member of the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler wants to retire as a member of the Miami Heat. Let's just get this extension done. We'll be back. We'll be available next year. Last year was the season from hell, not just for Jimmy, but for everybody on that roster. Tyler Hero missed 40 games. Caleb Martin missed a bunch of time. It was just injuries. The injury bug was just going around the locker room. We'll be back. This is Jimmy Butler. We'll be back next year. Let's go ahead and get this 2-year, $113 million max extension, and let's just keep the good times rolling.
First of all, I present Jimmy a large bag of Panamanian geisha coffee beans, which is rated as the #1 beans in the world, as a kind of tribute. I thought, even though I drink my coffee black from Dunkin' Donuts, I still think that, and this is true. I saw Pat Riley. I saw Pat Riley at a Dunkin' Donuts drinking black coffee years ago, even before I started covering the team. And so, for me, it's like that has. I think he was still actually coaching at that point in time.
I like that you remember the coffee order. That's good reporting.
I was like, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. He was just kind of rolling in, going to the Key Biscayne, or I guess where he lives in Key Biscayne. So I guess he was going somewhere
suited
to the Heat facility. No, in shorts. He was. I think he, like I said, I think he was.
I didn't know he wore shorts.
Yeah, as a coach, yeah, I think he did. Yeah, and so he was there, and it was really early in the morning, and I was just like, "Hey, that's Pat Riley." It was fantastic. Actually, I wound up seeing a movie at the same time. This is a complete aside here. I wound up going to a movie years ago, and he sat in the same row as I did with him. The whole family went out there. Chris, the 2 kids, it was a fantastic experience.
This is a great Pat Riley impression, just sort of going off on different tangents and different stories. We'll continue with the Jimmy Butler, Pat Riley extension negotiations.
Yeah. So I give you the coffee, and I look you in the eye, and I say, "Thank you, Jimmy. This is an incredible. We've had a great run here. But we know it's not finished. But we also know it's not about the money. You want to win. You want to win here. I can't, in good conscience, look at this contract right now. You're under contract for another 2 years, this season and the next. And I know there's a contract extension you're eligible for, but that's about money. It's not about money with us. We're different. We're cut from the same cloth, you and I. You're going to get your money. You're getting your money all over the place, from endorsements, from Hotel.com, from your coffee business and everything else like that. It's not about the money. You've got the respect and fear around the league. But the one thing that's missing from your resume is a championship. And you want to do that here in Miami. And your best chance of doing it is here in Miami. And so I'm not prepared to even discuss a contract extension at this point in time, because you're already. Next summer, that's a whole different story. Next summer, when you've got your ring on your finger and you can set the terms however you like, we'll renegotiate at that point in time. But not this summer. We don't have to, and I don't think that we should. And I don't think you think that we should either. This isn't about money. This is about you proving that you can play a number of games and carry this team as you have over the past 5 years. And I'll do my job to make this roster the best possible, but you still have to do yours, living out the rest of this contract and carrying this team to a championship the way that you said you would.
Jimmy Butler and Bernie Lee respond after this.
What a fantastic tease that was. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is really simple to play. You can make your picks, submit an entry in less than 60 seconds, in a minute. You can already get your winnings. That's amazing. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That's what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. So make sure to download that app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDNBA, ONNBA, and get a first deposit match of up to $100. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA and get that first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. All right, we just heard from Pat Riley. The stance is clear. Pat does not want to even entertain these negotiations until next summer, appealing to Jimmy Butler's competitive side. So now I'm Jimmy Butler and Bernie Lee, and I say, Pat, I hear you. All of it's great. We do want to win more than anything. We are cut from the same cloth. We are Heat culture just as much as you are Heat culture. Look at the last 5 years and all the winning that we did. We understand all of this, but we still got to take care of ourselves. And Jimmy Butler is going to be 35 years old going into next season. And he does not want to risk. He doesn't want to have a lame duck season without a contract extension. And if we're all fully committed here to winning, then let's just get something done that shows that commitment to Jimmy Butler. Because he has been the captain of the second greatest era in Heat history. And it would only put it over the top if we were able to win a championship. But you talk about doing what I said that I wanted to do and winning the championship. What about you doing what you said you were going to do and giving me the roster that I needed to win a championship and finding that second superstar that you have yet to find? If we want to talk about keeping promises, well, you haven't exactly held your end of the bargain either in that regard. And so why don't we
every opportunity?
So we want an extension. We are not going to leave this summer. We're not going to go into next year in a lame duck season. That's not going to happen. And we deserve the 2-year, $113 million max contract. And if you're not even willing to hear us talk about that extension, well, then you know that there are other teams out there like Philadelphia who have the cap space and would be willing to give us that extension. And to be honest, offer a roster even more competitive than yours right now.
Maybe.
That we can walk into with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. I'm negotiating here. Break the fourth wall. We don't care that Joel Embiid gets hurt every other game and doesn't play in the play. That doesn't matter to us. We believe that we can win in Philadelphia, and they're willing to give us that contract. So if you're not, we might have to have those conversations with Philadelphia.
Fair enough. Then you're free to do so. If you think that that's something that you can negotiate on your own, that's fine. We can't do this. We cannot give you this money based on what we saw last year. We know that last year was an aberration and that you're capable of more, you're capable of better. And the way you're talking right now, it does not seem like winning is the priority. It seems like security, which you already have, and money, which you already have, is the priority. And so, to be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed because my vision for you was that you were going to be the next generation of a Dwayne Wade-like player. You saw what we've done with Dwayne, how we honor him, how we respect him.
And your jersey,
that was a different
story. And you were lucky he came back.
That we made a mistake. Yes,
you made a mistake. Don't make the same mistake now. Don't make that same mistake now. Then, all right. Let's fast forward. Let's fast forward this whole thing.
All right.
We agree to table this for now. Jimmy Butler says, "I'll be willing to take. Would you be willing to sign me to a max, an extension for something less than the max? Would you entertain at least having that conversation?" This is Bernie Lee. Bernie Lee shoves Jimmy Butler out the door. He's like, Bernie Lee says to Pat, let's just have a real quick conversation sidebar. We understand where you're coming from. Could we do something for less than the max? Because that extra year of security is meaningful to Jimmy. Jimmy does want that commitment from you guys. But if you're able to go get a star, the one that you promised Jimmy years ago, we would be willing perhaps to take less money on a contract extension. Save you some money. Remember, we're opting out of $53 million next year. We'll take less money that year for the security of that additional year. But we got to know that you're going to hold up your end of the bargain and improve this roster around Jimmy Butler so he doesn't have to do so much during the regular season, which he clearly does not want to do. So this is really bad negotiating by Bernie Lee. I don't think he would say any of this, but I'm just saying this in terms of trying to move this conversation along. But
I understand where you're coming from.
Can we?
We can do that.
Okay, so let's.
But I will also.
Go ahead.
I will also say you're going to have to meet certain incentives in that contract. And I think my incentives are that you're going to have to play, Jimmy will have to play a minimum of 70 games next season or guarantee a title. And you can have that in a contract. And you'll get whatever money you need as long as you can meet those criteria. You have to play 70 games.
So we're talking about something less than the max, but if I hit those criteria in terms of the 70 games, in terms of the winning the championship, we'll write that in as unlikely bonuses, and then that'll get me up to max money?
Yes.
All right. So let's table this for now. I like Jimmy Butler, Bernie Lee, we know that we can get max money from Philadelphia. We are not against exploring that option for us this summer. But if you can go get a star, then we would be willing to take less money in the name of winning, in the name of being able to retire and win a championship with the Miami Heat. So we're tabling this for now. The next part here, and this is going to be tricky, the Donovan Mitchell extension. So in this sense, we got to figure out what's going to happen here. Maybe you're the Cavs front office and I'm Donovan Mitchell. I don't know. All right, so you and I agree that in this off-season simulation. Donovan Mitchell says it's been real, Cleveland, but the fit with Darius Garland hasn't been exactly right. I appreciate you firing JB Bickerstaff, but I don't want to be the guy who's hiring coaches. Like, that's not exactly where, like, Donovan Mitchell hasn't been that guy throughout his career. He's not the coach firer. He's not going down the Trae Young, LeBron James kind of route of kind of trying to dictate those things. He's never demanded a trade. He's never asked for a trade. He got traded from Utah because they decided to blow it up. Like, this, Donovan Mitchell has been a team first guy. And based on the way he handled this season in Cleveland, I believe him to be a team first guy, which is why the Miami Heat want him so badly. But with all that said, I don't think that Donovan Mitchell in good conscience could commit to Cleveland long-term, considering the other options that are out there for him. And so right now, Donovan Mitchell does not sign the extension with the Cleveland Cavaliers, despite the recent reporting that Cleveland is increasingly confident that they can get him. Maybe that's just leverage. Maybe that's just trying to get people off the scent. Hey, please stop talking to our guy through back channels before we even get a chance to negotiate with him. I think there's an element of that happening there. But because Donovan Mitchell decides that he doesn't want to assign the extension, Cleveland is at least open to trading him. Now, they're not shopping him.
Right.
They're not going to shop him, and nor should they, by the way. He's still under contract for a year. Like, there's something to be said about having Donovan Mitchell back for another season if you're the Cavaliers. But they need to at least, they would not be doing their job if they were not at least listening to trade offers for Donovan Mitchell. The Heat will be calling Cleveland about Donovan Mitchell. Now, we're already at over 30 minutes on today's episode, David. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to record this. We're going to end it here. We're going to do the Donovan Mitchell trade stuff in a part 2, as well as handling the rest of free agency and filling out Miami's roster going into next season. We're going to do all of that in a part 2 of our Miami Heat mock offseason simulation. Make sure you check that out, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We're ending this episode for now, but that next part 2 will be up shortly as well.